Hi everyone, David Aragona here with Craig Milkowski, and we are excited to be doing some stakes previews for DRF. I'm sure you've seen the great videos that Dan Illman and Mike Beer do, along with Brad Free doing some of the previews in California. So we're excited to add our opinions to that mix as we'll be doing some races from around the country moving forward. And I'm the Timeform US analyst. Craig is the Timeform US speed figure maker. So we're excited to also look at the races from that perspective, talking about the pace projectors and taking an in-depth look at the Timeform US PPs, showing you how you can do your handicapping with Timeform US. So, Craig, I'm excited to kick things off with this race from Parx on Saturday.
Yeah, what better start for the speed figure guy than to start with a 1.5-mile dirt race? Not really my cup of tea normally, but I actually think this turned out to be a pretty decent betting race. And, the reason is I just am kind of lukewarm on some of the horses I think are going to take some money. I'm going to just start with the horse that I picked on top, and that's the 2 Math Wizard. He was a horse he's 5 now, but he won the Pennsylvania Derby as a 3-year-old. And he's had some ups and downs since then, mostly downs. But he had a pretty long layoff. He came back at Saratoga. He ran in that Alydar Stakes that was won by Art Collector. It was a race that just didn't have a whole lot of pace in it. You can see in our Timeform US PPs that all the fractions are coded in blue. And it's proven to be a pretty strong weight race with Art Collector coming back to win the Charlestown Classic. Night Ops stepped well up in class next time out and ran a pretty representative race. So I just think he has a better shot in here. He's going to get a little more pace to run into. And I'm looking for some return to that good form that he showed earlier in his career.
Yeah, he is one of many horses who are stretching out in distance in this race. And let's look at the field for this race to start things off. And you'll see that Moretti is listed as the 2-1 favorite. He's a pretty substantial favorite, actually, on the morning line. To me, it looks like a very competitive race, and I'll be surprised if any horse is kind of that short. We'll see how they ultimately do decide to bet this race. We do want to show the Timeform US pace projector as we move into talk about a few more of the contenders in this race. And the number 8 Seafoam is shown on the front end. And Craig, I know this was a horse that you wanted to talk about a little bit because he is coming off the highest last out Timeform US speed figure at Saratoga when he got a 116. And he does run his best races up on the front end. And looking through this field, there really isn't any other confirmed front runner like Seafoam is. So you do imagine that Joao Rosario, who's listed to ride, is going to send him to the lead. I think it's just a question of, was that race last time first off the claim for Michele Giangiulio? Was it a little bit dressed up by circumstances, and can he get the 1.5 mile distance?
Yeah, I think those are two pretty big questions. I mean, I don't want to be too hard on him. He's 8-1 on the morning line. He's going to offer a price to bettors looking for lone speed probably in a 1.5 mile race. But I was just not that impressed last time. Sure, he ran a good speed figure, but I'd like your input on this. It seemed like a track that was heavily slanted towards speed. One of the things I like to do in Timeform US is go back through the charts for a particular day. And we have it coded in red. And when you look back through them, there's nothing that would change my mind and think maybe it was a slip of the algorithm or it maybe missed some factors. I do think it was a pretty heavily speed favoring day. And I just think these are much deeper waters stepping into open company.
Yeah, let's take a look at the replay of Seafoam's last race when he won that Edmund Shippen by 5 lengths. He was racing first off the claim for 10 Strike Racing and Michele Giangiulio, who actually got her first career victory as a trainer in this race. And as you see, he came into the stretch with the lead. Joao Rosario, who's back on him in this race, drifts off the rail a little bit and is just able to lead this field to the wire. And what really was a merry-go-round race, as Craig was alluding to. And I kind of agree, looking through the results of that August 11th card at Saratoga, it did seem that speed really had an advantage, not a whole lot of closing going on. And as we look at the PPs of Seafoam and Timeform US, you can see what Craig was referring to, that red color-coded race rating box all the way to the left where the 117 race rating is listed. That indicates that the track was very speed favoring on August 11th, as Craig was saying. That's what the algorithm spit out. And when you look through the charts, you can kind of see how that was the case. So even though he's coming off 2 pretty high speed figures for this field, 116 and 117, I think he got pretty favorable circumstances in both of those races. So we'll see what price he ultimately goes off at. He's 8-1 on the morning line. If that's a fair price for you, then have at it. But he seems like one that could take a little more money. We'll see how that plays out. Let's take a bit of a deeper look at the pick of Craig, the number 2 Math Wizard, who he was talking about at the top of the show. He's actually a horse that won his lone prior start at Parx in the Pennsylvania Derby all the way back in 2019. He's a 5-year-old now. He was a 3-year-old then. But let's take a look at that race, actually, the stretch run, when he caused the upset. And Craig, I forget who you liked in this race, because we probably talked about it on the Time Form US forecast a couple years ago. But this is the career highlight of Math Wizard.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember who I liked that day, but I'm 100% sure that it was not Math Wizard, because if it was, I wouldn't have forgot. He was quite a price that day. It was really kind of a blanket finish. I don't think it was the strongest Pennsylvania Derby that we're ever going to see, but he ran well. He proved he liked the surface, and he's a horse that just always given me the impression that the farther they go, the better he would do, and he hasn't gotten many chances at these elongated distances, particularly at the lower level races like this. It's just a grade 3 in here. He's not facing any killers. So I liked what I saw from him last time. I mean, he was beaten 10 lengths back in third, but he was running on at the end. And as I said earlier, he had no pace to run at. You can see how slow the pace figures were. The way I have it set on my computer is for the pace figures of the race. So that's actually the leader and not Math Wizard. So I just think it was a paid workout. That's his second start off the layoff, and I'm looking for a big race from him.
Yeah, and he's one of many horses in this race who has to answer that distance and stamina question, because really most of these horses have not gone this far before. Most of the horses in this race are stretching out to the marathon distances for the first time. As you said, Math Wizard gives you the impression that he might be able to handle it, but I wanted to go with some horses that are actually proven going this far, and 2 of them are coming out of the same race, the Birdstone at Saratoga from early August. Let's take a look at the stretch run of that race, which was won by the leader of this division, or at least the former leader of this division before he was defeated at Belmont last week. But the 2 horses that finished directly behind Lone Rock, who was the heavy favorite in this race, are Moretti and Sugar Ray 2, and they're back in here. Moretti, as I said towards the top of the show, he could be favored here, and he definitely has the most solid marathon form of any of these, but I like the way that Sugar Ray 2 is finishing on at the end of this demanding 1 3/4 Birdstone, actually running by Moretti at the end of this race. And Sugar Ray 2 has only tried these marathon distances twice in his career, and they are by far the 2 best races that he's run, both in that stud muffin going back to March at Aqueduct, and he ran even better last time going a further distance in the Birdstone. So he just seems like one of these horses for Tyler Service who appreciates the added ground, gets better the farther they go, and he just never takes that much money at the window. So I think he's going to be a fair price once again in this race.
Yeah, I've got no problem with him. I made him my second pick. It's really hard for me to watch that race and think Moretti had much of an excuse not to finish ahead of him. Now, granted, we're cutting back a quarter of a mile here, but the way these races play out, it usually doesn't make a whole lot of difference, I don't think. If you're going 1.5 miles, 1.5 miles, 1.75 miles, they kind of just go the same pace and try to finish it off. So I have no problem with your pick at all, and I'm definitely lukewarm on Moretti. He had everything his own way that day. It's one thing to lose to Lone Rock, who was in raging form, but the way Sugar Ray 2 went by him just didn't leave a good impression in my mouth. I didn't understand the move to the turf last time, where they just threw him in way over his head, jumped up to a grade 1. I think it was his first time actually being on turf in his entire career, and he did no running whatsoever. But just entering in that race didn't seem like a good sign to me, so I'm definitely taking a shot against him.
Yeah, I think those are the main players that we covered. I mean, there are a few others that we could talk about that are stretching out. Some local Parx horses. I put Sheer Flattery third. I think he's one that is just in raging form right now. I know he's been facing weaker company, but he's going out for the Lewis Linder barn, who wins a lot of races at Parx. So he just seems like a kind of galloping type that might appreciate the added ground, but he's got to answer that question as many others do. Jamie Ness, who wins a ton of races at Parx, is sending out Magic Michael, another one that's trying to stretch out out for the first time. But as you see by Craig and I, our picks here, we went in a different direction. Craig, he highlighted Math Wizard. He likes the stretch out for him. And I put Sugar Ray 2 on top. I just think he's going to be the right price, and he's getting to go the distance that he really prefers. So that's it for this video, everybody. Thanks for watching. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. You can check out all of these stakes previews and all the video content that DRF has to offer, along with the podcast that Craig and I do. So thanks for tuning into this video, and good luck if you're betting this weekend.